And welcome everyone. It's the It's Official Podcast nighttime version here on a Tuesday evening with Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk from First Bet. Jeff's back from Hawaii. I'm back off the couch. I've been laid up sick for the week. So one of us had fun over the last 7 days, Jeff.
I would have had fun if our team hadn't lost two games against top 10 competition by a total of 6 points,
Yes.
Marquette and Gonzaga. But I'm back. It was a great time. I've never been to Waikiki Beach, and I'm not a surfer, but I was tempted to just jump in. I can tell you that. But while I was gone, and while we were gone, we were off last week. There was some significant racing going on. I mean, very much so. I enjoyed it from afar,
Right.
and got some opinions here that we'll share. And looking ahead to the end of the year, and then after the first of the year, some of the Colts and Phillies that we'll be talking about tonight could become major players in their respective divisions.
Yeah, we were off for a week, but as we come back, we're kind of getting right feet to the fire, right? You got opening day at Gulfstream for the championship meet coming up this Friday, Cigar Mile Day coming up on Saturday, Kentucky seeing shifts from Churchill, which ended last weekend, second Kentucky Derby future wager in the book. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff as we look forward tonight and we look back over what we've seen over the past few weeks. Let's start our first topic of 5 tonight. While we were gone, Jeff said it off the top, the headlines that took over racing while we were gone, including Nysos, impressive winner of the Bob Hope Stakes at Del Mar. Could be one of the 2-year-olds turning 3 to watch as we get to the Derby Trail. Let's go back to the Bob Hope at Del Mar.
And they're into the stretch, and under a hand ride, Nysos and Flavian Pratt come by the 8th pole and begin to lengthen their lead. Without being asked to run, Nysos by 3, Nysos by 4, Nysos by 5, Nysos in the Bob Hope wins with style. Looking good.
So as we look ahead to the Triple Crown Trail next year, we're all trying to find who that hot shot horse is. Jeff, could it be Nysos, this son of Derby winner Nyquist?
I think he could be better than Nyquist, of course, who won the Derby. And he was a terrific horse, and he's turning out to being a very strong stallion. He's had some good horses, some that are not so good. He's not quite as popular in the sales ring maybe as was Justify will be, obviously, and those kind. But he can get a very, very good top colt, and Nysos is every bit of that. He broke his maiden first time out at Santa Anita by about 10. Comes back and wins this race. Official margin is 8 3/4. It could have been 10. 97 buyer number is very fast for a 2-year-old this time of the year. And he's got a long loping stride that would give very strong indication that he will run on. So we talked about him and this race on our Friday show and the first call. This is the first we've been able to look back at it since then. And now it's just a matter of whether how much Bob Baffert wants to do with him leading up to what will be a start in the Kentucky Derby, probably not in his barn, but somebody's barn, if he goes about and does what I expect him to do.
With Nyquist, we saw him run a deeper 2-year-old campaign, obviously, but he did come back in the 7 furlong San Vicente and start his 3-year-old campaign. So maybe you see something like that because the Bob Hope around 1 turn, maybe they're not in a hurry to go 2 turns with Nysos, but certainly the pedigree says he will go 2 turns, not just by Nyquist, but on the damn side of the pedigree is Unbridled Elaine, a Breeders' Cup Distaff winner if you go back a couple generations. So there's no reason why this horse won't get a distance, but do you have to rush to get there? You do have the Sham and January at Santa Anita. They could come back quick if they wanted to for the futurity at Los Alamitos, but I don't know why you would do that if you're a stakes winner here right at the, right on the cusp of December. I don't know if you want to wheel back in 3 or 4 weeks for something at Los Alamitos. So I would look for maybe the San Vicente at 7 furlongs next for Nysos. Then stretch him out and see what you've got at Oaklawn or in the San Felipe, something like that on the West Coast. But he should get a distance of ground. And like you said, very efficient mover.
Yeah. By the way, I just looked at the Santa Anita Stakes schedule for next winter, and there is no more Sham Stakes. It turned out to be a Bob Baffert Invitational. I think one of these races, I can't remember if it was the Sham or something else. I think he ran 1, 2, 3, 4. But I would think that San Vicente would be a logical place to bring him back. And then you can look at something else, whether it's the Lewis or the San Felipe or out of town. It's just a matter of how Baffert wants to orchestrate it. But he's the best 2-year-old that I've seen, certainly in California, and you can certainly make a case from what he's done. He doesn't quite have the resume yet, but I think he'll get it in a hurry. That's Nysos. And of course, you can't bet on him in the future book. We'll talk about that a little bit later on because Bob Baffert's horses are included in the all others.
Right.
But there's a way to get around that, and I'll talk about that as well when we get to that segment later on.
All right. Also, while we were gone, not only did we have the nice 2-year-old in Nysos, but there's a 3-year-old, the Virginia Derby winner, Integration. Nobody had ever heard of this horse until this summer at Colonial Downs. He's only made 3 career starts now, but he's got back-to-back stakes wins. He's a perfect 3-for-3 for Shug McGahee. Here's Integration in the Hill Prince Stakes in New York.
As they've got a quarter mile left to go, Laurel Valley has kicked. Equinox is now sprinting for home. So is Integration, and Integration is trying to fend off an I'm Very Busy who's trying to move towards the outside, but Integration is just sprinting clear. Look at this run, is drifting well out, but Integration is now opening up on this field, is well out into the turf course, but no doubt about your winner. Integration, much the best here at 4-5 in the Hill Prince.
So he's been beating up on 3-year-olds. Next up will be Open Company, Elders, as you will, as we get to January and beyond. Maybe Pegasus World Cup turf for this one, Jeff. I think there's a pretty high ceiling.
Well, I think that's exactly where he should go, even though he's been beating just 3-year-olds in his lightly race, but runs a mile here, a mile and 1/8 and 147 flat, last 3/8 and 34 and change. By Quality Road out of a mare by Scat Daddy, so he should be able to run on any surface. Right. Maybe he'll get that chance, but why mess up a good thing? Undefeated on grass, 5-length winner here, doing his best work from the quarter pole, actually from the 8th pole to the wire. And now that he has to take on older horses, he'll get tested by some seasoned pros. They're going to get tested running against him too. So it's going to be really interesting to see at Gulfstream where he shows up. But I would certainly look at the Pegasus turf race for him. On numbers, he's in the high 90s with eligible to get much better than that. And don't forget this 3 quarters and 12 and 1 to finish out in 47. I know the course is Aqueduct is fast, but that's doing the work when it means the most from the quarter pole home. And what a turn of foot he's got. Integration, a superstar, perhaps on grass in the making.
We're always talking, we need Americans on the grass, right? We need Americans on the grass. It's such a depleted division. Up to the Mark stepped up last year and became one of those stars of the American turf. Maybe next year in 2024, that horse could be a horse like Integration. The mares, on the other hand, in the Cardinal Stakes, as we talk about more of what happened while we were gone, they learned that the Euros are pretty stout in the filly and mare turf division, even ones you really had never heard of prior. Star Fortress is one you're going to hear of from heretofore, and she was awesome in the Cardinal in her first start stateside.
They're off the turn, Walkathon, cut the corner, Saffron Moon traveling well. These two head and head for the lead. Star Fortress is rocketing down the top of the turf, and here comes Star Fortress from last to first in the blink of an eye. Star Fortress, just like that. In front by 7. Oh, she's running away from them. Star Fortress, like a rocket down the turf today.
In sports, we call that running up the score, Jeff. That race was over, and she was just pulling away from him at the end. Cherie DeVoe looks like she's got a new addition that's got some big upside.
This filly, first of all, she's by See the Stars, and she's 4 years old, so I don't know who was training her overseas or what they were doing. She only had a handful of starts, and she placed in listed stakes, but she looked like a Group 1 winner here. I've never seen that she was in front by, officially on the chart, she was in front by a half length at the furlong pole and ended up winning by an official margin of 10 lengths. Comes the last 8th and basically 12 and 1 over a course that was deep and not real conducive to fast times, I'll say that. I mean, she wasn't beating a great group here, but by the way, overseas she was much more of a marathoner, 1 mile and 3/8, mile and a half. This race was 1 mile and 1/8. We could always use a filly in that division, the mini marathon trips that fillies have a chance to run at. And I don't know who's out there that's going to beat her now. Star Fortress, Irish bred, and you mentioned first time in the States. She left her form far behind. I don't think this was a fluke because that turn of foot that she showed, even though she didn't change leads, was rather eye-opening. Star Fortress is her name.
Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf, maybe. Tampa Bay Downs has a good series of races for the distaffers on the grass early in the year. We often see a lot of those good Mark Cassie fillies running February, early in the season at Tampa Bay Downs. So maybe there's some spots for her in Florida in the coming months here. We will see. Star Fortress, as Jeff said, one to keep your eye on. And finally, while they were gone, Jeff, there was actually a pick six carryover in Southern California.
Really?
Yes, on Thanksgiving Day at Del Mar. So returning to the $1 pick six during the September meet at Santa Anita, the entire meet went by for the month without a pick six carryover. Same thing for the start at Del Mar. But we finally got a carryover, and when we got a carryover, they sent it in with $1 million in new money. So what do we think about the pick six returning to its former form, not the jackpot style wager, but with the $1 minimum? Is it time to go to two, perhaps?
It was always time to go to two. They started off with one, but I wasn't thrilled about that, but I was just thrilled that they were getting back to it.
Right.
I expressed my opinion on the rainbow version of it. Now we have a carryover, but what good is having a carryover if you're never going to get a carryover?
Right.
And, for $1, especially at Santa Anita where the fields are small, it wasn't surprising at all that we went the entire meeting without a carryover for $1. And then Del Mar started off. They didn't have one till Thanksgiving, as you mentioned. I don't know when the next one will be, if at all. But, I mean, this idea of having a carryover is only good if you're going to get one, and you're not going to get one with $1. Not in California. Now, if you went to say, for example, Gulfstream, if they wanted to do it, I mean, you have huge fields, 12-horse fields almost in every race on the weekend, but not so at Santa Anita. Right. I hope that management realizes that if they really do want a carryover or a series of chances for carryovers, they've got to go to the $2 increment. And as a player, I want the $2 play. Now, not everybody can afford to put big tickets in, but why not have at least one bet where some guys who like to send it in have a chance to send it in, Right. This is what would be. I hope they change it to $2. It should be. It's what they want, what the players want. What do you think, Jeremy?
I'm totally for that. It's like when you walk into the casino and there's blackjack, right? There's some cheap tables and then there's some higher roller tables. Right. There's nothing wrong with having something for all levels of players. And to me, the pick six isn't a little man's bet. It's a big player's bet. And so give the big players their chance to dig into a pool there. And you could still play it for a smaller ticket. You're going to be kind of, taking your shot lottery style otherwise. But let the big guys slug it out and go after the pick six and in a traditional $2 style. I'm totally for that. I think that's the best way to go. Wagering note is Gulfstream Park opens its championship meet on Friday. On the weekends, there's going to be a $3 turf pick 3, like we saw at Santa Anita during the fall meet, and like we've seen at Keeneland for the last couple of years. So the tropical turf pick 3, they're going to call it at Gulfstream Park. That debuts opening weekend here coming up at Gulfstream. So keep an eye on that on weekends throughout the course of the entire championship meet, which runs right through the end of March into April. So we will look forward to Gulfstream. Those are the items that happened while we were gone. Let's go to our next topic, and maybe the world's best horse showed up while we were gone as well, Jeff. You had to go to Japan to find him, but the competition couldn't find him. The Japan Cup was all about Equinox. Turning for home, Panthalassa was kind of laughing at him, but it was Equinox who got the last laugh and the biggest smile.
It's Panthalassa that's going to turn into the home straight a long way ahead of title holder that turns in second, and then comes Equinox, Liberty Island, with Liberty Island on the outside is Stars on Earth, and to do so all the fancied runners are there. Danan, Beluga, Shonan, Bashito running a big race as well. Panthalassa, his run surely must have come to an end, and here's Equinox, the big white face on Equinox, the son of Keita Black. He's in the clear. It's going to be such an easy win indeed into the closing stages. It's Equinox under Christophe Lemire as a champion jockey, a champion horse up to the line. Equinox wins it from Liberty Island in second. Stars on Earth, then came Digi's title holder next.
Just an absolutely dominant performance like we saw in the Dubai Shima Classic when he left Japan in March, and he won in similar geared down dominant style on the turf. And you don't see turf races, especially turf routes like that, won in that kind of fashion, geared down with a big lead. He's something else now. What, 8 for 10 lifetime?
With 2 seconds. I don't know how he managed to lose 2 races, but he did. But he's won 6 in a row right now, 15.9 million in converted American dollars. And as a 4-year-old, now the question is, Well, there's no question in my mind that given his expertise in that particular type of trip, 1 3/8 mile and a half on turf, Japan Cup was 1.5 miles. There's nobody in the world who can beat him. And, I'm a big fan of Auguste Rodin, but I don't think he'd want any part of him right now, based not only in this race, but what he did in Dubai earlier this year. So the question is, do you retire him now? His sire also won a Japan Cup. It's strictly Japanese breeding. Or do you, with the purse money that is being offered now around the world, do you give him a chance to run as an older horse? Here's what I do know, and I've read this. I'm just quoting what I've been reading in the trades, but the owners would love to bring him to the States and showcase him to North American racing fans, and obviously with a goal of the Breeders' Cup turf, showing that he can do what he's been doing on a world stage, even though he already did it in Dubai. But now they have to balance it out. Okay, we'd like to do this. Purse money's there, but is he too valuable as a stallion? I don't know. That's for them to figure out what revenue, what amount of money they can raise while breeding. I hope. Wouldn't it be great for him to come and race in California next year or whenever? And because the Japanese racing people, the trainers, the owners, they love to come to California. I mean, they're looking for any excuse to do that, and they've got a good one right now because they probably feel, and they should. Nobody in the world can beat him, and he runs on firm ground. He's got a great tactical speed. He's got an electric turn of foot. So they said they'll let us know in due time. Well, I hope they let us know that he's coming. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, he's proven, like you said, on 2 continents, and you wonder what's out there, right? Like ARC, would you try to win the ARC with a horse like that? Breeders' Cup turf, like how would you even set the campaign up? I mean, he could stay in Japan. Obviously, they're going to have races throughout the course of the year for him there. It would be a light campaign, you would have to say. I mean, he's been lightly raced throughout his career already. Again, just 10 career starts, but there's no question Equinox is something special. I was looking up the name. I was wondering, was he born on the Equinox? Of course, the Equinox is when the day and night are equal times, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours a night. He was born in 2019, 3 days after the Equinox. He was not born on the Equinox. I think he was born on March 23rd, and that year the Equinox was on March 20th. So I don't know.
I think you probably.
I was hoping he was born on the Equinox. That would have been better.
Well, he's close enough. Anyway, bottom line is he and all of the publications that somehow try to rate horses in the world, even in many cases it's apples and oranges, but they have him as the world's top horse and rated among the very best in the last quarter of a century. So we'll see what happens, but exciting to see him.
If he shows up again, we'll follow him. That's for sure. He's exciting. One horse we won't be following through a 4-year-old campaign or through the Pegasus World Cup now is Mage, the Kentucky Derby winner this year. Retired earlier this week. His connections put out press releases saying that Mage, after having some issues that would set back the start of his 4-year-old campaign, decided they would just go ahead and pull the plug. It's the second Kentucky Derby winner to retire in the past month. Of course, Rich Strike a couple weeks ago was also sent away from the racing game. He didn't make it through the sales ring at Keeneland, so we're not quite exactly sure what's going to happen with Rich Strike. We know with Mage, though, he's headed to stud next. At his best on Kentucky Derby Day, he surprised people with a lightly race campaign that found him in the winner's circle.
Here's Mage coming strongly down the outside. Angel of Empire is putting in his run, and there's 1 furlong to run. 2 Bills on the inside, trying to hold off Mage. Mage has taken the lead here as they come into the final 16th, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby. And then it was 2 Phils, Angel of Empire, and a photo. Disarm was 4th. Mage has done it in 2:01.57 seconds under Javier Castellano.
Mage isn't going to go down as one of the most recognizable Kentucky Derby winners, right, Jeff? I mean, he just didn't do enough after the fact to kind of cement himself. But a Derby winner is a Derby winner no less, and they are for all time. So we celebrate the Derby winners like Mage, but he just didn't leave enough mark afterwards to kind of be known more than just a Derby winner.
And he only won one race before he won the Derby, which was a maiden win. So in that sense, he's very similar to Rich Strike. He won a maiden special. Rich Strike won a maiden claiming. They won the Kentucky Derby, and that's it. That's all it did. And I don't know, how popular he'll be to breeders. He'll have some attractiveness for people who want to breed to an unproven stallion like that, good sire line and all that. But you've talked about this, Jeremy, and you're pretty opinionated about breeding to horses that don't stand training. And I don't know how good Mage really was. I mean, it wasn't the greatest Kentucky Derby field in the world. Neither was Rich Strike's. But here's a horse who, again, won a maiden, won a Derby, didn't make it through the end of the year. Is anybody going to, write big checks for a horse like that?
Well, he debuted January 28th, right? Yeah. Horses don't debut January 28th of their 3-year-old year unless there was something wrong, right? I mean, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, you got a late start and an early finish. He had a fair campaign this year. It's not like he only made it to the races 2 or 3 times. As we take a look at Mage, he ran 3 times after the Triple Crown. These are starts or 3 times after the Kentucky Derby. These are the last 10 Kentucky Derby winners down the right side of the page, and how many races they made after their Kentucky Derby victory. So Mage ran 3 more times. Did not run as a 4-year-old, obviously. Rich Strike ran 6 more times. The parentheses is 4-year-old starts beyond that. So you look, I mean, you go down to Medina Spirit. Yeah, I know Mandaloon. You can say, Mandaloon, Medina Spirit. I'm calling Medina Spirit the winner for statistical purposes here. Authentic, Country House, Justify. You got to go back to Always Dreaming, to a horse who made more than 1 start as a 4-year-old. He made only 2 and didn't win any of those. Then you got Nyquist, American Pharaoh, made 5 starts after winning the Kentucky Derby, culminating in the Breeders' Cup. But you have to go back to California Chrome, and we're in 2014 now, 10 Derby winners ago, until you had a horse who had any significance beyond the Breeders' Cup of their 3-year-old season. And of course, California Chrome ran 16 more times after his Kentucky Derby victory. He ran 2 times as a 4-year-old, then came back as a 5-year-old, ran 8 times, and of course, they tried him 1 time as a 6-year-old before pulling the plug. But when we're talking about, boy, woe is me, they just don't run the Derby winners much anymore after that. They don't. I mean, here are the last 10, and you've got to go back 10 years to find one who had a significant career beyond the Breeders' Cup. They keep the Derby winner around until the Breeders' Cup Classic, and if they don't win that, it's over pretty much. Is kind of the moral of the story anymore.
Yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, good luck to Mage. We'll talk about his brother a little bit later on in the program here, who might actually turn out to be better than Mage, if that's possible. Right. But we'll see. I think the intention, though, in this case, was to run him as a 4-year-old. It's not like they're retiring because they're trying to capitalize on the big stallion deal he's going to have.
Right.
He just physically wasn't up to it and wouldn't have been. So it's probably the smartest thing they could do with him right now is to pack your bags, go home, and hopefully he sires some horses that can run.
Those are the news items on the former Kentucky Derby winners and Triple Crown participants. Now on our program, we go to our Triple Crown tracker to talk about horses who may be involved in 2024. We've got 2 to look at, as well as the Kentucky Derby future wager that was offered over the course of Thanksgiving week. Let's go to Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes, the traditional race on the final Saturday of the meet. It was an impressive win for Honor Marie. Let's go back and take a look and see how this one got it done from just off the pace.
It's wide open, top of the stretch. Stretch stride, trying to hang tough. Here's Anna Marie with a sweeping move on the far outside. And Real Men Violin punches through toward the rail. 1 furlong to go. Anna Marie's up for short lead. Stretch ride fights on. Real Men Violin down toward the rail. They're coming to the finish. And Honor Marie from off the pace to score by 2.
Jeff, what do you make of Honor Marie as a potential Derby prospect? You win the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill, you already start thinking about the first Saturday in May. You're going to win over the track. You're a major stakes winner there, and you're headed to the winter.
And it's not just the win. It's the way he did it. He's a closer who came against slow fractions and won going away while losing ground and racing wide. I mean, if you want to dream about the Kentucky Derby, you'd rather have him win that way than to be on the lead through slow fractions and barely hanging on. which we can see, which happens quite a bit, not necessarily in this race, but with 3-year-olds. But this colt came around horses and one going away last 16th and 6th and a 5th. And he got a good buyer number. I think the buyer number was like 90 or something. So, I mean, that was a legit race. And, Honor Code was a really good miler, but he's a son of AP Indy. Anything can happen. And the way this colt won here, you have to think that the connections have a right to be really optimistic next winter and heading into the spring classics.
When I'm looking for my Derby horses, I like that brilliant miler type on top, and I like some turf dam side stamina. And we've got that because the mare here, Dame Marie, she won the first 2 races of her career, but later on in her career won at 9 furlongs on the grass. So that's kind of the right kind of profile. We'll see what Whit Beckman has as we get down there. But like you're not disqualifying this horse based on the pedigree. This is a horse who actually can play and got the mile on a 16th here at 2. So you only got to get to a mile and an 1/8 in the preps, right? I mean, that makes you a Derby horse. He doesn't have to get much farther to this point unless you go to Fairgrounds, which could be the path for a horse like this. Whit Beckman, the trainer, we might see him on the Fairgrounds path. That would actually make a lot of sense. And then you might get a mile and 3/16 for the Louisiana Derby, but I'd expect maybe we'll see this one in New Orleans. Certainly some options, I think, in the middle part of the country for Honor Marie. D. Wayne Lucas will be heading to Oaklawn for the winter. We know that, and he's got himself a potential Derby horse because also at Churchill Downs last week in Stakes Company, they ran the Ed Brown Society Stakes, and it was Just Steel for the old coach, keeping him in the game, and he could be on that Arkansas Derby trail. Let's see Just Steel.
There's 1 furlong to go. Booth is being tested. Just Steel's up for the lead. Just Steel the leader. Molly's Town's now second. Agoo down inside. Normandy Hero. Booth is back to 5th. First is Just Steel. Just Steel under the wire to win it by 2.5. And
so what do we make of this one, Jeff? Visually, I wasn't wildly impressed that this one wanted to do a whole lot more. They were all kind of laboring, but stakes winner at 2, you're going to get every chance with Lucas at the helm.
Well, not only that, but he's by Justify. So I'm not tossing anything out by Justify. And Just Steel, you mentioned that the field kind of finished in a heap. The number was pretty good, though. And he rallied wide and kind of a grinding type horse. He's got a lot to prove, but he might be, the Wayne Lucas horses, my experience over the years, and we're going to go back now almost 50 years since Wayne got into the thoroughbred industry after being a quarter horse trainer, but they surprised me a lot. I mean, I see a lot of them. I remember Charismatic was running a claiming race in January of that year, and I wouldn't sell this colt short just because he's a Wayne Lucas by Justify. He may not have looked great in this race, but he might look a whole lot better next time. So he's on my list as one to definitely consider the possibility, and we'll see what this was just 6.5 furlongs, but he should go on, and if he does, then maybe he'll make some noise.
We talk about that brilliance up top by Justify, the Triple Crown winner. This is a $500,000 yearling by the Dam one, a grade 1 at Caulfield, the 1,000 Guineas in Australia. So there's turf, miler. Again, this is kind of what we're talking about. Some brilliance on top, and that good dam side turf pedigree seems to play extremely well on the first Saturday in May over the years. So do not be shocked if Wayne Lucas is on the trail with Just Steel through that Oaklawn path. And those races start off with the Smarty Jones. You've got an option then in the Southwest Stakes. He's got one who's kind of ready to go and tooled up to stretch out and try those 2 turns. And you get a lot of 2-turn options, 4 of them in all at Oaklawn to pick from in their Arkansas Derby series. So a lot of chances there for Lucas and Just Steel. Also, last week, they had the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 2. Remember, they had Pool 1 right before the Breeders' Cup that closed before the Breeders' Cup Juveniles. So nobody's had a chance to bet on Fierceness since he's been the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner until last week. And the fans sent it in on Fierceness as the prohibitive favorite amongst the individual entries in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager. Here's how the betting went down. He's 8-1, only horse in single digits. The 40 wagering interest included the 40 entry, all other 3-year-olds, which includes all the Bob Baffert trainees, horses not listed amongst the 38 individuals. Then they had the 39 for 3-year-old fillies, and then the 40th, of course, was all other 3-year-olds. Fierceness, though, Jeff, off that commanding double-digit length win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 8-1. Locked, Nash, Knightsbridge, all the next line of horses. Dornoch, the one who's the half brother to Mage, or is he a full brother? He's the kin to Mage. Dornoch got a lot of play at 19-1 as well. What stands out to you on that page?
Well, here's the thing. A friend of mine called me up, and he was so proud of himself because he made what he thinks was a really good bet. And this guy, he's not like you and me. He's not a professional. He just enjoys the sport. He's not an expert. But he thought he was really smart here. And I had to tell him, much as I didn't want to, that, you might have stumbled into something here. And I'll tell you why. Because if you like Baffert's colt as much as I do, and talking about Nysos, you can't bet on Nysos. He's part of that all other 3-year-old, 6 to 5. But here's what you can do. You could have bet him with his sire because Nyquist is listed in the all sires future book at 11-1. So theoretically, you could have bet Nysos by just betting at his betting his sire in the sires pool. You'd have got that kind of price. And here's the other thing. And I told him, you probably don't even know this, but it's Nyquist. You're not necessarily betting on Nysos because all of the Nyquists. Well, guess
you get all the Nyquist, right?
There's another really, really good Nyquist colt out there. I'm going to go through my notes here because I got all the PPs here. His name is Knightsbridge. Now, you remember him, Jeremy? He won at Keeneland. He won his maiden by 10 first time out. And by the way, he's by Nyquist out of a mare by Bernardini. Guess what? Nysos is by Nyquist out of mare by Bernardini. Right. Now, taking the 11-1 in the future, you get them both. Whereas
any other ones that come along, because we're
and
not
anything
done
else,
yet.
I don't know if there's going to be any more than what already they are. But so he thought he made a good bet. I think he did. I mean, I'm not crazy about betting 11-1 or whatever it is in November before the Derby, but if you it could be worse. Knightsbridge himself is 19-1. Dornoch is also 19-1 according to the closing odds. What about a horse named Nash, another Godolphin colt? Jeremy, you familiar with him? He won his the second start. He won at Churchill Downs after finishing second. 10-length romping winner at Churchill back on November 12th. Ran fast, looked good. Brad Cox, Medaglia d'Oro out of a Malibu Moon Mare. I mean, he's up there at 18-1. I mean, they're not tote busting type prices, but it's something to look at, I think. I mean, you could do worse.
I'm going to give you a Brad Cox horse. It's 124-1.
All right, now that's what I want to hear.
Because the pool's already closed. But the name is Lightline. Don't mistake it with Flightline, but it's Lightline. Flightline without the F, and it might be an F pick. But at this point, 124-1 makes it an A play to me. Brad Cox trains this one, was a dominant daylight winner at Horseshoe Indianapolis in the career debut. Then ran in a Keeneland allowance race and ran a good second. I think this one's got a shot by City of Light, brilliant miler on top, right? Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner. And then the damn side of the pedigree out of Upper Line, who was a really good turf route distance mare for Mike Stidham. She won the Dowager. She won the other big one at Keeneland, the Bewitched Stakes, the 2 Keeneland Distaff Turf Marathon races. Right. That was a race Upper Line won both of those. So you've got that turf route dam side there. You've got the brilliance on top with City of Light. I love the pedigree. It's Brad Cox. And I've seen so many times over the years, these Brad Cox horses who debut at Horseshoe Indianapolis, people think it's the B string, and they turn out to be some really good horses that debuted there. A lot of times he wants to get them 2 turns first time out of the box. Sometimes he just wants to keep them from Saratoga and some of the heavies, but he's had success with horses that debuted in Indy. So Lightline is going to be the horse at 124-1 in this first pool that I'm going to put people on, and could be a nice price as we get to the Fairgrounds series or Oaklawn. Brad's going to run horses, in those Oaklawn, Arkansas Derby preps or at Fairgrounds in the Louisiana Derby preps. He's usually got multiples for all those kind of spots. And I think we ran the graphic in late January of this year when he had like 21 prospects or something at that time of the year. Right. That's the kind of thing we're probably going to see come this January. Again, Brad Cox is going to have a big suitcase to unveil when we get to prep time at the Fairgrounds.
You mentioned 124-1. I'm not quite that high, but I'm going to throw in one more who closed at 35-1. And the colt. His name is Parchment Party. We featured him as a future star in his debut win over distance and ground at Churchill. He came back and won an allowance race November 9th. He was 5-1 that day, so nobody listened to us apparently. But he won that race rallying from 10th at Churchill Downs. So now he's for 2 for Bill Mott, and you could have got 35-1 on him. And I just can't wait to see what he's going to be like, a son of Constitution and out of a mare by Tiz now. I can't wait to see what he's going to be like in February and March and April and maybe even May. And you could do worse than 35-1 with a future book bet on him over the weekend. He'd already won his second start by then. You didn't have to wait for that. So I wish I could have taken note of that. I was too busy in Waikiki. I probably missed out on that. But anyway, these are names that I think are going to be important members of the Derby division after the first of the year.
Let's talk some fillies who had success in our tracking of the Stars of Tomorrow now, as we move to a couple fillies who won maiden races in recent starts. Let's go back to Aqueduct on November the 19th. Her name is Leslie's Rose. She cost $1.15 million at the Keeneland September sale as a yearling. Todd Pletcher unveiled a big-time winner here. Let's take a look at Leslie's Rose.
46-2 for that half-mile time. They've got a quarter mile left to go, and Leslie's Rose is in hand. Leslie's Rose now gets the cue. Shoplifting has got to go right from there, but Leslie's Rose is finding plenty here. Rat Ortiz Jr. just took a look over his right shoulder, and they are far, far back as Leslie's Rose is just sprinting away. Leslie's Rose with a 16th to go. It is all Leslie's Rose. He won 5 yesterday. He wins the opener today. Rat Ortiz Jr. Leslie's Rose. They win it easily.
What do you make of this one, 2-year-old filly?
Margin was 9 lengths there. Into Mischief filly out of a mare who never placed in stakes. In fact, never ran, although she was by Galileo. This is the second foal from the mare. So there's nothing in the first generation, which tells you at $1.15 million, she must be one of the great looking fillies of all time.
Right.
These guys don't miss a beat, and Todd's got himself a runner. The mare herself, I mentioned by Galileo, the mare herself was a half sister to Miss Sophia, who won the Gazelle, second in the Kentucky Oaks, and is a dam of Annapolis. So long turf, dirt, it doesn't matter. This really should run on. I don't know how ambitious Todd's going to get right off the bat, whether or not he decides to jump into the Demoiselle or maybe take a more conservative approach. But the way she won this race, going 6.5, she's going to run long, that.
Right.
And I got to think that they got themselves a filly that they can do whatever they want. It's just a matter of how ambitious they want to get and how quickly they want to do it.
Yeah, championship meet at Gulfstream seems like the right spot where we'll see here sometime this winter, maybe over to Tampa. They've got good 2-year-old filly stakes that kind of coincide with the Tampa Bay Derby Trail. So some options for her if they don't go in the Demoiselle in New York to head south to Florida. Also in our horses to watch, our Stars of Tomorrow, we had a runner from Southern California at Del Mar on November 26th, opening race on the card. Let's go listen in.
Off of the turn, and Copian now finds the front, comes to confront She's a Tempest, takes the lead, kicks on for home. It's Copian looking smart, and just under mild encouragement from Flavian Pratt. She's a Tempest is clearly second best, but this is a sharp, smart debut from the daughter of Omaha Beach. It's Copian winning easily by open lengths over She's a Tempest, and Criticism ran third.
Those beholder colors there, the Spendthrift Farm Silks. What do we make a Copion for Richard Mandela?
Well, you got a first-time starter here that was left at 30 cents on the dollar. So much was expected, much was delivered. And what I loved about Copion is she ran like a filly who'd run 10 times. I mean, she broke from the gate well. She wanted to go to the front. The jock didn't want her to do that. Flavian said, no, we're going to teach you something here. So he took her back to 4th early on. Just kind of sat there and kind of tripped to it to 3/8 pole. She picked up the leader in a matter of strides, opened up into the stretch, 1 geared down. Margin was 3 3/4, could have been double that easily by Omaha Beach. And she's got a family, or he's got a family. She's got a family. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
3 stakes winners out of the mare, the Victory Gallop mare. She's had the mare's had a Miss Gizmo, champion 3-year-old colt in Canada. Also, Amy's Flatter, you know him. Jeremy did some good work on the Commonwealth of Keeneland, you know him. And then another horse was a stakes winner named Aragorn Amy. That's that second dam is just as good as the first. So the family is there. And I would think the way this filly moves, such an athletic, nice, easy stride on her, she'll run long. And, she's trained by Richard Mandela. And again, Richard, he'll take a shot right off the bat. I mean, she's the kind of filly that could run in the Starlet if they wanted her
Right.
to. It's a grade 1. I don't know who out there who would beat her. So that might be an option, or they might just put her away for the winter. But the way she ran and the expectations are that Copian could be, the goods next winter for sure.
Mandela's had a pretty good year with the 2-year-old fillies, I guess. Tamara didn't get it done in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, unfortunately, and the injury that was gone there. But what a season she had, winning the Del Mar Debutante prior. The baton could be passed within the division here to Copian. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll see her on the Santa Anita Oaks Trail during the Classic meet at Santa Anita, which gets underway starting December the 26th. That's going to wrap up this week's edition of It's Official. Let's go back to the big board and review the 5 topics this week that are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. While we were gone, we talked about the victory in the Bob Hope by Nysos. Integration looking like a 3-year-old on the turf who's got a big Pegasus World Cup turf future, perhaps, after winning the Hill Prince. A British star coming stateside named Star Fortress, who romped by 10 in the Cardinal at Churchill. And we talked about our desire to see a $2 pick 6 in Southern California due to the lack of carryovers. The world's best horse may have unveiled himself in Equinox with a dominating victory in the Japan Cup. We talked about the retirement of Mage, which followed just a few weeks on the heels of Rich Strike. So the last 2 Kentucky Derby winners being retired in the last few weeks. Our Triple Crown tracker took you to the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes, where the win from Honor Marie puts that Whit Beckman trainee in the Mid-South this winter with a chance to hit the Kentucky Derby trail. Wayne Lucas could be back at Oaklawn with stakes winner Just Steel, and Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby future wager closed, and we talked about some of our value plays that could be on the board there. Our 2 stars of tomorrow this week were Leslie's Rose, 2-year-old filly for Todd Pletcher, and Copian, Richard Mandela's 2-year-old filly out on the West Coast by Omaha Beach. All right, Jeff, we'll be back in 1 week's time, and we'll do this again on Tuesday. We got our 1 week out of our 52, where we take off each year around Thanksgiving. We'll be back with this show. But before then, you and I will reappear on Friday with the return of our First Call podcast, which will handicap stakes races coming up over the weekend. A big weekend. It's Claiming Crown Day at Fairgrounds. The Florida Sire Stakes and opening weekend at Gulfstream Park are kicking up their heels. A big weekend at Del Mar. We've got some major turf stakes going on. And in New York, it's Cigar Mile Day on Saturday. So this is the biggest weekend of the year since the Breeders' Cup that we can talk about here as we wrap up 2023.
Yeah, I mean, great racing ahead. We'll have plenty to talk about on Friday, and then we'll recap it next Tuesday. But again, you mentioned so many opportunities, almost overkill, really, as I kind of taking it easy, trying to wait for Santa Anita to open up, and they dragged me back in, on Saturday with another massive amount of top class racing to handicap and analyze and enjoy. That's what I'll be doing, and hopefully everybody runs to their capabilities, and we learn something on this first Saturday in December.
And we'll get our head back in the trough of tea here and try to get a little healthier until we get to Friday. But hopefully the voice held up okay. You enjoyed the podcast here to this evening as we did a special night edition. Jeff and I, again, will be back on Friday to give you all the handicapping insight you need for a big weekend of racing. On behalf of everybody with First, my partner, Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you Friday.